Like most people, I enjoy the environment. I grew up in British Columbia, Canada, in a forested area where hiking, kayaking, and camping were common activities. I find myself partial to defending Canadian and US oil and gas, though. Not because I necessarily think they are wonderful things and because I burn tires in my backyard for fun. I just simply don't see our use of oil and gas disappearing anytime soon, as most of our lives revolve around the use of it. And I find Western oil and gas companies to be far more ethical than, say, Saudi oil, Malaysia oil, or even Gazprom. There are still plenty of good criticisms around the crony capitalism and unethical practices in the oil and gas industry. But in order for that criticism to be taken seriously, it needs to be real criticism. And when I look at the protests going on at Standing Rock regarding the Dakota Access Pipeline, all I see is a lot of confusion. I first ran into no DAPL protesters at Trump's inauguration, and when I asked them to explain why they were there, well, they literally said they didn't want to talk to me because they were white.
Sure, I'm just wondering why you're protesting the Trump inauguration to do so.
Trump has stocks in the company that owns DAPL. I want to focus on this right now, but there's plenty of information online, and you can ask Indigenous people around the rally as opposed to white people. That'd be great.
Why can't I ask white people?
We would rather have you speak to Indigenous voices. That we're here to not speak for them.
I figured out what kind of protester I was dealing with pretty quickly. But even though they were being ridiculous, I still wanted to hear and understand their side of the story. So I spent some time delving into the topic. And if you don't know what the situation is, I'll lay it out for you simply. People are protesting a pipeline built by Texas-based Energy Transfer Partners that would transport around 500,000 barrels of crude oil daily from North Dakota to Illinois. A large amount of the protesters came from the Standing Rock Sioux Native American tribe, who were angry that the pipeline would be traveling under the Missouri River near their primary source of drinking water. They believe it is going to contaminate it. The tribe has also stated that the pipeline goes through sacred burial grounds and that the federal government did not adequately engage the tribe during the permitting process, something that is required under federal law. These protests have been going on for years now and have even resulted in violent standoffs with the state versus the protesters. Thousands of tents were set up on the construction area of the pipeline and around it. Tensions got so bad that there have been injuries, even a woman who nearly had her arm blown off. The occupation of this area is just being cleared out. A federal judge rejected the request by Native American tribes for an order to block the pipeline, and Donald Trump signed an executive order pushing the Dakota Access Pipeline through, saying it would be massively beneficial to the economy. So who is in the right here? What is the reality of the situation? What is the truth? Well, I can tell you it is a hell of a lot different than people are portraying it. Let's start from the top. Who owns the land that the Dakota Pipeline is on? The Dakota Pipeline is on pretty much 100% privately owned property in North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Illinois. And it does not enter Standing Rock Reservation at any point. So no, the pipeline is not on their native land. However, that does not mean that the land is not significant to natives. There are lots of areas in America that were not made into reservations that still have historical and religious significance to natives. And therefore, under federal law, when digging things up for big projects like this pipeline, the nearby tribes must be consulted and given a fair opportunity to weigh in. The people who ensure that this happens are a group called the Army Corps that oversee these types of projects and ensure they are safe for the populace. So were Native tribes consulted in the process by the Army Corps and the pipeline? Well, the tribe and the community at Standing Rock claim they were not consulted by the Army Corps and that historical sites were not taken into consideration properly. What is the reality? Well, after a long legal back and forth, a district judge ruled in September 2016 that the Army Corps did indeed likely comply with the law, and he allowed the construction to move forward. There is public record of filings, route adjustments, and compliance with tons of government environmental standard organizations, and there is also public record of the pipeline adhering strictly to procedures set in place to maintain significant cultural, historic, burial, and artifact sites. For example, here's a case study of the process they went through. In this case, dated August 15, 2016, there were reports of human remains during the digging. When this report was made, a panel composed of people from the North Dakota Intertribal Reinterment Committee convened immediately. This committee included members from the Standing Rock tribes and the State Historical Society, among other groups. They examined the situation and found that the testing for human remains was negative, meaning this was not a burial site, so work continued. The processes in which this was done appear to be rather efficient, thorough, and well documented publicly, which is why when the tribe tried to issue an injunction on the grounds that the Pipeline and Army Corps did not follow these types of procedures, U.S. District Judge James Boasberg expressed his sympathies to the tribe but stated that the court must nonetheless conclude that the tribe has not demonstrated that an injunction is warranted here. And this wasn't some crazy right-wing judge or anything. This guy was an Obama appointee. He was just going off the evidence provided. I would definitely suggest that people who are skeptical of this read his 58-page order and decision. It was found that not only are the tribe's claims unfounded, but in many cases the situation was the exact opposite of what the tribe had claimed. There is far more evidence in support of the Pipeline and Army Corps if you go through the documents provided on your own time. For example, court documents on this case show that in September 2014 alone, the Corps made 5 unsuccessful attempts to meet with Standing Rock Sioux leaders, reaching out repeatedly to involve them in the conversation. Others have even suggested that public records show hundreds of meetings with public participation. So, yeah, I call bullshit on the protesters' point that the Army Corps and Pipeline did not try to work with the tribes and community. And the judge called bullshit on that too. But does that mean that their protest is unwarranted? I mean, we all like clean drinking water, so let's ask that question. Does the Dakota Pipeline hurt the tribe's drinking water? Well, one of the key protest points was that the Dakota Pipeline hurts Fort Yates water intake, which is a few miles downstream from the DAPL River crossing, the site of the protest. The issue here is that this water intake at Fort Yates is not in fact the primary source of water for the reservation when the pipeline is finished. It is being shut down and replaced. And the tribe knew that it was getting shut down even when they made their pleas to the public about it. The Fort Yates intake valve was 20 miles away from the pipeline, and the new intake valve in Mobridge, South Dakota is 70 miles away from the pipeline route. Worst case scenario, if there was a leak, it would literally take 14 hours to reach the water supply. The head of North Dakota's Public Service Commission stated, "The new intake really does effectively reduce the concerns that this oil pipeline would impact the tribe's water supply." And state officials have repeatedly said they believe the pipeline poses few safety risks. Now, for some people, even the idea of a 1 in 10 billion chance of something happening is unacceptable. And that's fine, make your case for that. But the reality of the situation is that it is very, very unlikely that the water will be contaminated. As thousands of safety precautions are implemented, new safer engineering methods are used, and environmental scientists and environmental protection teams are consulted. Now, there was one more huge point made during this controversy, and that was that the protesters and natives were not being treated properly by the state and by the Army Corps, and that it was more of an attack on peaceful protesters than anything. So, were the Dakota Pipeline protests peaceful? First of all, absolutely there is evidence of police using force against the protesters. That is undeniable. There is footage of it, there's documentation of it. Now, does that make this a black and white situation where the police are immediately the bad guys? No. The protests are going on private property, so these individuals have already broken the law. And as much as I believe in property rights, this is hardly the biggest issue to me. The bigger issue comes in when you acknowledge the fact that this was not just a peaceful protest, and the police are not just all devils like the media portray them to be. In this clip here, you can clearly see the police asking people to get off the pickup truck and warning them, if you don't move, you are going to get pepper sprayed. And then the police have things thrown at them. The police have also uploaded images of improvised weapons that have been used against them, and based on the footage, I'm inclined to believe that this did indeed happen to them, despite people claiming it did not. And as for reports of a woman having her arm blown up, Well, there's no solid evidence that that was the police who did this. In fact, the police stated that on the Sunday of the incident, they had not deployed a grenade or any other explosive device against the protesters. In fact, after recovering a propane cylinder, the police implied that this woman may have done it to herself. There's no absolute proof on this one, but the evidence given certainly does not support the one-sided headlines and outrage I saw all over Facebook when this happened. And I have to say, my trust overall towards what these protesters are saying has severely dropped. After looking into this situation more, I am thoroughly disappointed in the way the protesters and the media portrayed Standing Rock. And I can't say my heartstrings have been pulled at all seeing these people leave their polluted and burnt camp. Because as usual, the truth of the situation is far from the perfect villain-hero narrative that was portrayed. If you enjoyed that video, then be sure to hit like and subscribe.